What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask Shane Anything right here on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, the founder of Sifted, and I'm here to answer your questions about literally anything. Today is the NFL draft, and my Steelers hopefully aren't drafting a quarterback in the first round. I'm really excited about the draft today. Hopefully some of you guys are too. I know a lot of you guys aren't too into sports. But anyway, I am rocking a Steelers lid today for the NFL draft. We have a bunch of great questions as usual. Thanks to everybody who pledges at $7 or more per month. That's why this show happens at that Ask Shane tier. If you're pledging at $4, maybe consider bumping it up. Or if you're not a pledge at all, maybe consider jumping over to patreon.com/sifted. For just $4 a month, you get to watch this show the minute it gets published. The $7 is just to produce the show. Everybody gets to watch it day one. Again, more great questions today. Let's get to them. Okay, our first question for this week's episode comes from Ben. Hi, Shane. Thanks for all the excellent content. Thank you for letting me make excellent content, Ben. It was interesting to hear you slightly lament the fact that everything is getting prematurely leaked these days. Has this always been your take as a journalist, or would you have been pushing to get as much as possible out there in your earlier days? Do you have any related reflections on the role of the modern games journalist? Cheers from the UK. Thanks again, Ben, for your help in creating all this content. Without people like you, it just wouldn't happen. Now, onto your question. You touched on something important there, and that is that things have changed drastically over time. And I think that's for everybody, not just me, but yeah, for sure, my perspective on breaking news has changed with the advent of social media. So you're right. I am a journalism major. I have a journalism degree. When you go through journalism school, you learn how to break news, how to cite sources, how to make sure your sources are legit and worth relying on. There's a lot that you learn about breaking news and how to do it the right way. And I'm sure when I came out of school in, the late 90s, that's how I thought you did it. And that's how it was done, honestly. If you broke a story, you were rewarded for breaking that story with either traffic to your website or newspaper sales or magazine sales or whatever. Here's the thing, that doesn't really happen anymore. There's very little incentive to break news, particularly when you consider that you could be putting a creak in the relationship between you and a publisher or a developer if you break news before they want it to be out there. Now, there's nothing they can do about it, and technically they should not punish a journalist for breaking news if they got the news in ethical ways. But that's unfortunately just not the way the industry works, particularly when you're talking about like entertainment and things like that. For whatever reason, people consider entertainment to be this loosey-goosey journalism thing where maybe all the rules don't apply that would apply to something like news or sports or something like that. It's silly, and I don't agree with it, but that's just kind of the way it is. So it used to be, if you broke a big story, let's say somebody broke the news about the GameCube. And I mean, actually, now that I think about it, I think IGN did break a bunch of stuff about the GameCube back in the day. Matt Casamassina was all over it. But let's just use that as an example. Let's say you broke a story about the GameCube. If you did that, your website exploded because you were the only place to go to get the information. So people are like, oh my God, what? IGN's reporting there's this thing called the GameCube, although I think they called it the Star Cube at first at IGN, which is funny. Oh my God, I'm going to IGN. You would type in IGN.com or IGN64.com. You go there and you'd read the story. Now, all you need is one person to read the real story and then go on social media and say, hey, IGN has this story about the GameCube. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Here's a link. No one goes to the link. Everyone just looks at your tweet or your post or whatever and just comments there. Nobody goes to the source anymore of the people who are breaking the information. So therefore, there is very little incentive to actually break news anymore other than just like the personal clout of it or maybe growing your social media account. Honestly, if you're going to break news now, probably the best thing to do is break it yourself on social media. Add a link to your website, knowing that probably no one's ever going to go and just read the story, or one or two people will read the story, and then in the very next reply underneath your post is a synopsis of the whole story, so nobody has to actually go to the link. So the economy around breaking news is basically bankrupt at this point. There's very little reason to do it. And the other problem with it is there's very little benefit for you or your publication, and like I said, they could just blackball you because they're like, oh my gosh, you're breaking news that we wanted to break. We had this whole marketing plan set up, this whole advertising plan set up around this thing, and now it's just all gone to crap because of you. Because you were doing your job as a journalist, honestly. So the thing is that There's no reason to break news anymore. There's no good reason to break news anymore other than for the edification of everybody else who wants to know the information. But personally, there used to be a huge incentive to break news and be the person who got the scoop and got all the information. Now it's almost like a detriment, because then they're like, oh, you know somebody who knows stuff. Like, we're going to keep an eye on you. So things have just changed so much with social media. People rarely get credit for doing the work anymore, which really sucks, because the problem becomes, if you are either not getting a reward or you're being punished for breaking these stories, you're going to stop breaking the stories, and so we're going to stop getting the information. Now, I think maybe part of your question is, why does it bother me personally to have stuff get out there early? Look, it's not like I've put a flag in the ground and said leaks are horrible or anything like that. It's just not as fun getting the information from a tweet or a post on Facebook or a TikTok video or whatever. It's just not as much fun as getting that announcement from the people who want to make the announcement, who have worked very hard and for a long time on crafting that announcement. Now, I've had to get over the fact of we're not doing this stuff in person anymore. That hasn't happened for a really long time. But going back to those days, I mean, you cannot... It's hard to even put into words what it was like to be in the room when Nintendo showed off Twilight Princess for the first time and the room just erupted. Like, that stuff happened all the time. Not all that long ago. So I miss that. I miss the camaraderie of being with other people who love games as much as I do and sharing that moment. I think it's a big reason why some people still go to the movies. Like, I think going to watch a comedy is better in the theater, where you can go and laugh with other people. Watching a horror movie, probably better in the theater, where people jump and stuff like that. For me, it's the same thing with breaking news. That stuff used to be broken by the publishers or the developers, who would create these elaborate plans on how to do it. Smoke fills the stage, somebody walks out, here's the... All that's gone. It's now just like, oh, here's a tweet. So that's why I think, look, I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm just saying it was more enjoyable to enjoy that stuff with other people and have it crafted by the people who are breaking the news, instead of just getting it secondhand from some random internet post or some random social media post. Okay, question number 2 comes from Odin5. Once upon a time, PlayStation had a mega hit shooter called SOCOM. SOCOM 1 and 2 are still the pinnacle of my hardcore gaming days, and I've yet to find a game to match the community and gameplay. Why did PlayStation let that series die after Zipper Interactive dropped the ball with SOCOM 4? Do you think the franchise still has an audience? Do you have any SOCOM memories? I still keep in touch with my old clanmates. So Odin, your last sentence there is why gaming is so awesome. I still stay in touch with people that I used to play Tribes with back in like 1997 or 98 on a Voodoo 2 card. Those friendships that you, and I do call those friendships that you forge through playing games together over months and months of time, they're hard to break. And they mean something. So I'm right there with you, Odin. I get it. Like, I still have old clanmates that I'm still friends with. And a lot of them don't even play games anymore. We've just transcended the hobby and we're just friends. It doesn't matter whether we play games or not. So I totally hear that. Now, back to your question about SOCOM in particular. You kind of answered your question there on your own when you mentioned SOCOM 4 and Zipper Interactive. Because at that point, SOCOM had become an also-ran kind of a generic shooter. It just didn't have a creative spark to it. The other thing to remember about SOCOM is, and look, I don't want to offend you, Odin. I get it. When you're young, I don't think you really have a good idea of whether games are actually good or not. I think, if you like them or not, but I think, as far as being able to compare them to other games and figure out if they're really good, you don't have that frame of reference. So I would just say that I never liked SOCOM. I'm just being honest. I always thought it was like a generic knockoff. And in all honesty, the reason SOCOM was so big, there was like a handful of online games available for PlayStation, and so you had to play what was there. The game isn't that good. It was never that good. But again, it goes back to the bonds that you built with the people that you played it with. And I think, and it's not just you, everybody does this, your positive memories around the game are shading your opinion of the game itself. I played every SOCOM. They were just always like kind of a mediocre third-person team-based shooter to me. I would rather play Rainbow Six and stuff like that. But again, a lot of people, when it's all you got, that's what you're going to play. And you had a great time playing it, which is awesome. And you build a bunch of friendships playing it, which is awesome. But I think all of that nostalgia and those good feelings are kind of impacting your remembrance of SOCOM, I guess is the way I would put it. So the truth is, SOCOM is a dead brand. Zipper Interactive had basically killed it off by the time SOCOM 4 came out, and people just didn't care anymore. Once there were other options on the market that PlayStation fans could choose from, sales of SOCOM kind of went down the toilet. And that kind of shows you all you need to see. So I've never been a SOCOM fan, just being honest. I prefer to play first-person shooters and stuff like that, or other third-person tactical shooters, Ghost Recon and things like that, instead of SOCOM. But again, it really is awesome to remember the feelings you had playing games when you were younger with a great group of people. All right, our last question for this week's episode comes from Lucky Wallace. Hey Shane, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well too, Lucky Wallace. A number of classic series have had 2D beat-em-up revivals recently, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Streets of Rage, Power Rangers, and now Marvel is up next. Is there another classic series or new IP that you think would be a perfect fit for this classic genre? Lucky, you are hitting the nail on the head. It is kind of like the second golden age of the beat-em-up, with the first golden age being the arcades in the 80s. The crazy thing is, like, I never would have guessed that this genre would come back with a fervor. But I do believe that, you know, as generations go on, you have new 13-year-olds who have never played a beat-em-up. And they may like beat-em-ups just like I did when I was their age many eons ago. So I get why people like beat-em-ups, because they're so accessible. Like, it's the one genre that you can play, even if you're a core gamer, that you can play with your casual friends, and they're good at it, and they can play it, and they get it, and you don't have to explain the controls to them for 3 hours straight. Like, you explain, here's punch, here's kick, here's run. That's all they need to know. Most players can handle that. So the classic beat 'em up is truly one of those genres I think that will live forever, and also is a great kind of gateway drug to people to try to get them into gaming. So if you have friends who don't play games and you want them to, and they come over sometime, get them to play a beat 'em up with you cooperatively. And I bet you can start turning them into gamers. So that's the first thing I would say. The beat 'em up is never going to die. It's going to be here forever. And the other thing I would say about beat 'em ups is that they work with everything. I cannot think of a single video game franchise that I like that I would not like to see a beat 'em up version of it. Imagine a Super Mario Brothers beat 'em up. Seriously, just a beat 'em up set in the Mushroom Kingdom. Why hasn't Nintendo done that? Why? It should do that. And it could just go through all of its properties, Zelda, Metroid, just on and on. Every Nintendo franchise. The same goes for PlayStation. Any of its big franchises. I would play a beat 'em up God of War, a beat 'em up The Last of Us, a beat 'em up anything. I think all of them would be awesome. Going over to Xbox, a beat 'em up Halo, all of it. It all would be awesome and work. Just think about it. All those franchises I just named very quickly. Tell me, you weren't creating those games in your mind. I saw screenshots for the Halo beat 'em up. I saw screenshots for a Metroid beat 'em up because it's so easy to imagine. So I love beat 'em ups. I've literally been playing them for like 30 or 40 years at this point, and I still enjoy them. And you're right, some of these new ones have been incredible. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is great. And if you'd asked me this like 3 months ago, my first answer would have been Marvel. Because those X-Men 4-player arcade machines, I don't know how much money I spent on those things. I've been waiting for a new Marvel X-Men beat 'em up for like decades. So I would have said that first. I would have been like, where's the new Marvel beat 'em up? But now we're getting that. We're getting them for pretty much all the big properties that kind of cross over between entertainment and gaming, and I think that's absolutely awesome. Also, as you mentioned, reviving old beat 'em up franchises like Streets of Rage with excellent entries in the franchise. So I think everybody can like and appreciate the beat 'em up. I think it's a great gateway game for casual gamers to start playing games with core gamers. I don't have a single bad word to say about the beat 'em up. Okay, that's it for this week's edition of Ask Shane Anything. Go Steelers! I just hope they don't draft a quarterback in the first round, but that's probably what's going to happen. I'm going to be bummed. But anyway, I hope you guys have had a great week full of awesome games. Thanks to everybody who pledges at that Ask Shane tier at $7 or more per month. You people are why this show keeps happening, and we get to create this personal connection between myself and our patrons and everybody. In all honesty, this show ends up running on YouTube as well. What's up, YouTube crew? So thank you if you support at that tier. Even if you don't and you're supporting at that $4 a month tier at patreon.com/sifted, that gets you all our content day and date, including this show. The $7 tier is basically saying, hey, I like this show. I want you to keep producing it. So if you can find it in your heart to do that, that would be awesome. If not, I totally get it as well. Have yourselves a great week, and we'll see you for Game Face on Tuesday.